Serbia. So we'll have a lot of input, and I hope that we will have some very good, interesting results at the end of this whole conference. So I would like to take the opportunity to formally open the conference.
Okay, thank you. Zahvaljujem gospodinu Holgeru Hajbahu. Inače, za ovu konferenciju prijavilo se 231 učesnik. Osim Konrad Adenauer zaklade, ovogodišnju potporu pružili su Hrvatska zajednica županija,
Support comes also from the city of Crikvenica, from the county of Zagreb, then from the agency Press Clipping, the Trakošćan Hotel, and Pod Vision. For the first time, the World Association for Public Relations, IPRA, has decided to become a partner to this conference and to provide its support, which speaks in favor of the quality of the content this year. Allow me also to say thank you to all the presenters and everybody who has joined us and who has recognized the quality of this program and have decided to devote your time to us. It is a difficult time, and I do not know where you have joined in to the Focus Conference. Maybe you've joined us from your kitchen, from your living room, from your offices, but I'm sure wherever you are, you will learn something new with us today. As we've heard, the conference is being organized by the A Priori Institute for Integrated and Inclusive Communication of Southeastern Europe, together with the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Technical support is by the A Priori Agency. The conference is being held under the motto Closer to People, because we are aware of the fact that the public administration, the public institutions, and communication experts are part of the service. People in public administration and public companies will be able to survive if they exchange their ideas and experience. And that is why the Focus Conference is so unique according to its content. Please do not forget that the transparency we all talk about begins with communication. I also would like to emphasize that politicians sometimes do not understand that they are here to serve the citizens. And some politicians, unfortunately, even today, do not understand that transparency is the key to political survival. That is why we have experts from public administration and public institutions here with us to explain why public messages have to be formed and created in a way to get to the people, to those they're intended to get. Let us see now our first clip before the first presentation.
YouTube ide prijenos ovoga i čuje se sve, ali u Zoomu očito nisu unmutali zvuk iz studija i ne znam zbog čega to ne učine. Mislim da bi Juro morao to prihvatiti da i kroz Zoom aplikaciju možemo čuti svi što govore u studiju.
Ja vas molim da svi nas koji nas pratite preko Zooma, Ako imate tehničkih problema, možete nas platiti i live preko YouTube kanala, imate i te linkove. Ja bih sada zamolio direktora i partnera u ovoj konferenciji, gospodina Holgera Hajbaha, da krene sa prvim predavanjem.
I will ask Mr. Holger Hajbach to start with the first presentation. Please take the word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koletic.
Hvala vam, gospodine Koletić.
Talking about communication in political foundations is a little bit for me like talking about the last 10 years of my life, because political communication or communication in the foundations has been really changing radically from the time when I started in Africa working as the country director for Namibia and Angola to where we are nowadays. And a lot of it is due to the pandemic, actually. That is true, but a lot of things have been also changing over the years. When I started, if you had a homepage, that was quite a lot. Social media wasn't even a thing, and especially if you were working in Africa, you could be happy if you had a stable connection to somewhere in Europe. So what we were doing was very much focused on the work on the ground. Now, when our back then new chairman, Professor Dr. Lammert, decided to travel to the United States to look at all the big foundations and big political institutes, how they communicate with the public, that brought a big shift also for the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, because those institutions like the Hudson Institute, the IRI, and all the others, they have big social media departments who don't do nothing else than try to market the product. And by that time, we had exactly one person in headquarters who was actually doing all the online communication through social media and through the homepages. Now that has changed, obviously. And the visit of Professor Lammert in the United States has contributed largely to it. We, especially here in Croatia, were in a situation when I arrived here 2 years ago, we had a homepage and nothing else. So we started Facebook, and we're going to start Instagram next year, just to bring us out of the Stone Age into the 21st century of communication, actually. Because what we have realized is that if we want to reach out to public that is more than the ones that we normally have in conferences, which is a certain age group, a certain social fabric, we have to be more active on social media. And the foundation as such, and I think that goes for all the foundations, has developed concepts on how to give us the tools that we need and not have to reinvent the wheel every time. And we as colleagues in the region have a weekly meeting actually through Zoom right now, where we discuss especially these kind of matters, how to market the product, how to connect ourselves better, how to get a bigger outreach to the public as such. With us here, especially in Croatia, we had this urge pretty early on this year, because not only did we have the corona pandemic, but we also had the earthquake, which shattered the historic town center of Zagreb, and unfortunately also our office building, which was declared unstable, so we didn't have an office anymore. So we had to very quickly come up with ideas on how to take all the stuff that we normally do offline, so to speak, and get it online. And so the idea was developed actually to use a TV studio, the one that we are now sitting in, to conduct some of our online activities like seminars, like congresses, like interviews, Facebook videos, all that kind of different things. And although in the beginning we had our usual problems that you always have when you start something completely new and you're not familiar with, we became pretty quickly professional, so to speak, in producing different formats that we have, and I'd like to talk a little bit about those formats. What we do, we have one monthly program that we call Podcast, which is actually like a summary or a wrap-up of our activities that we are doing online and offline. We show short videos on conferences that we did. We We also announce what we are going to do in the upcoming month, all that kind of stuff. That is one format. The other format that we have is we have a very good cooperation with the Institute Ivo Pilar on European issues, and in that format we do Facebook videos which are explaining, and we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, behind the scenes, explaining the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So far we have produced 7 of them, looking at sanitation, at education, at sustainable development, all these different things. And we always ask one German and one Croatian expert to speak about the respective SDG and reproduce a video which is really more explanatory. It's not meant as a political message, but it's just for the people to understand what the Sustainable Development Goals actually are, because a lot of people don't know that. And as you know, sometimes the language of international organizations like the United Nations can be very technical. And so you have to actually really translate the message, and that is what we are trying to do with the SDG videos. We got a really pretty good outreach on them as well.
What is your
Dobro slušateljstvo za naše programe.
Our goal for the next year would be
Naš cilj za
to
sljedeću
broaden
godinu
our activities in the social media field. As I said, we want to set up an Instagram account as well. And we want to become more professional. I have one team member who is more or less then hopefully in a position to completely concentrate only on the question of communication. And I think this is absolutely necessary because, you know, in the olden days, most of the time when we started, you had like an intern who would now look at the Facebook account and write something or not write something, and it was really like trial and error. I mean, you must not forget 2011 when I started, nobody knew whether something like Facebook would become the next big thing. And you also have to go with the times. It's something that I had to learn the hard way, because I thought, okay, Facebook is good, which it is for a certain age group, but you are not on Facebook, because people on Facebook are mostly in an older age group. So I can actually repeat a discussion of the family table. My daughter is 15 years old, and she thinks that I'm a dinosaur because I'm still on Facebook. However, out of the 82 million Germans, 37 million are still on Facebook, so you cannot ignore the group per se, but you have to broaden the scope. And that is actually what we want to do in terms of communication.
Do you think that the politician understood impact of social media and what your message for a politician? What you think they should have a Facebook, Instagram? They should communicate.
Yeah, I think it's. I think in the beginning a lot of the politicians underestimated the impact that social media really had, and still has. But it must be clear to everybody now that you cannot really communicate to the voters effectively and to your constituents without being present on social media. And most of the time, I would also say, if I see some of those presences, they could use a little bit more professionalism, so to speak. I know that it's always a question of money, but if you want to communicate effectively, you will have to have certain standards as far as political communication is concerned. And that is not only having the right program, not only having the right message, but also how to sell it, how to package it. And that is something that I think could still be improved in a lot of cases. And I know from my own experience that a lot of politicians need help with that. CDU in Germany has very early on, like 2013, started to, especially during election times, offer to the candidates pre-packaged versions of social media tools that they could just implement and use to bring their message across. And I think that is a very effective way, not only of giving each candidate a chance to send out their message, but it also gives a political party the chance that there is something like a CI. You know, that if you see a video, you know it's CDU. If you see a Facebook message, you know it's CDU. If you see an Instagram posting, you know it's CDU. And that is, I think, very, very important, especially if you're working on a national level. I mean, on a local level, it may be a little bit different, but on a national level, it's like, you know, for me, social media is like an election poster. If everybody's got another color in the election poster, and they have different messages and the photos look differently, there's never going to be like this is CDU. It only works if you have one CI, and that is where actually, especially the political parties in Germany, not only CDU, came in and tried to help the candidates with the task of being efficient, effectively, and also professional. And that has very much developed during the last years. And the same goes for the foundation. When we started doing social media, you know, everybody had their own Facebook account, and they looked not really like streamlined. And yes, it was a nice time of creativity, but in the end, if you see something, you want to know it's CAS. So, and for that, our headquarters are helping us to really come up with the tools and with the CI that we can use. And so when you open our Facebook account, or that of my colleague in Serbia, or that of my colleague in, I don't know, Tirana, you will know it's CAS. And that's very important.
Yeah. What do you think about education for politicians in the area of digital matters?
I think training is very important, not only for the politicians, but also for the voters. And you have to start as early as possible, because literacy, especially digital literacy, is of utmost importance, especially nowadays, you know, in the times of the pandemic, where there is so much fake news going on, and you have to really have a hard time really knowing what is true and what is not true. You have to start as early as possible in schools already to teach students how to go about social media and how to make the distinction between fake news and real news. And I think this is even more important. I always say I commend the Croatian government of spending so much money on putting laptops and everything into schools. My only concern is that most of the teachers know less how to use those things than the students that they are teaching. So I think along with the technical aspect, there has to be also educational aspect, and it can't start early enough, because never in the history of humankind has so much information been provided to the people. But that makes it even more difficult to really make the distinction between what is true and what is not true. And I think that is something that goes for political communication, but it also goes for the voters and for information in general.
Yeah. So thank you, Konrad Adenauer, to support Focus Conference, and thank you that we have sent some strong message to everybody who work with politicians and who is close to them, that it's time to digital literacy, not only for them, that only for the voters and the people. So, poštovani sudionici, vrijeme je za reklamnu poruku.
Dear participants, it's time for our advertisement.
Evo, poštovani sudionici,
Ladies and
došli smo
gentlemen,
ponovo u Focus Studio u
we are
Zagrebu
back to our
i
focus
vrijeme je za
studio in
naše
Zagreb.
drugo
It is
predavanje.
time for our second
Hrvatska zajednica
presentation.
županija predstavlja
The
odličan primjer
Croatian
transparentne
Association of Counties
komunikacije.
represents a very
Ona
good
pomjera granice
example of
učinkovitosti
good
prema
communication.
građanima, ali i
They
granice
are
u
doing very much for
funkcionalnosti
their
svoje misije.
communication towards
Hrvatska
the
zajednica
citizens.
županija, kao i
The
prethodne 2 godine, tako i ove, prepoznala je
Association of
Fokus
Counties has
konferenciju
recognized the Focus
i
Conference
prepoznala emisiju Fokus
and
konferencije,
the
te i
mission
ove
of the
godine
Focus
pružila
Conference. So
potporu
this year as well, they're
ovoj
providing
konferenciji.
support
Na
to
tome
this
sam
conference.
neizmjerno zahvalan.
I'm very grateful to that.
Sa nama je danas gospodin Goran Pauk,
Mr. Goran Pauk
gospodarstvenik
is
i
today with
sportaš. Ako niste
He
znali,
is
obnašao
an
je funkciju
athlete, he's a
načelnika
businessman,
policijske uprave
he
Šibensko-kninske, a
was
bio je
the
i
head
profesionalni
of the
nogometaš.
police
Gospodin Goran Pauk trenutačno
in
je
the county
predsjednik
of,
Hrvatske zajednice
Šibenik.
županije, ali i
At
župan
the moment,
Šibensko-kninske županije,
he is
koji će se evo
also the
javljati
county
i
prefect
održati
of
predavanje
the
izravno
county of
iz
Šibenik and
Šibenika na
Knin. He
temu
will join us
10
from Knin
ključnih
directly,
točaka transformacije
and he will
u funkciji
talk to
građana.
us about the 10
Molim
key
vas da prije
points of the
početka
transformation of
izlaganja još
counties
jednom
in the
isključite
function
opciju
of the
interpretation
citizens.
ako to već niste učinili.
Please
A sad se selimo u
set
Šibenik.
off
Pozdravljam
your
gospodina
interpretation.
Gorana Pauka.
Interpretation your interpretation button, please switch it off if you do not need any interpretation. Mr. Goran Pauk, President of the Croatian Association of Counties. Hello, everybody. I suppose I can talk to you because if I switch off the interpretation button, I do not hear anything. But I believe, as I was announced, it is my turn to speak to you. Dear participants, allow me to say hello on behalf of the Croatian Association of Counties. I would like to say thank you to the A Priori Institute for Inclusive and Integrated Communication of Southeastern Europe. Thank you for providing us this possibility to talk about public administration. Mr. Heibach from the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, hello to you too. The foundation is an outstanding and long-time partner to us. With them, we worked on our first online meeting in the new normal times. I'm very glad that today we will be talking about communication in public administration and public companies, because this is something we're not very concentrated at, but it is very important for the future public discourse. As a county prefect of the county of Šibenik and Knin, and as the president of the Croatian Association of Counties, I would like to share with you some topics, which is how public communication is transforming the life of the citizens. As we are very close regionally to our citizens, we, the representatives of public administration, feel very well how our citizens breathe. We know how they and what they think, and that on an everyday basis. In such a young democration system as Croatia, it is very important to find proper solutions in public administration. Allow me to point out 2 moments which definitely have influenced the life of our citizens. On one hand, this is the reform of public administration, which has already been implemented, and we have felt its impact. And the second is the European story. From January 1st, our counties have taken over about 200 jobs, which were before part of the public administration, the central public administration. In long-term sense, we believe that we are saving money that way, and that our citizens will be provided with a faster and better service than until now. because that was the case with all the tasks and businesses which the central government has directed and diverted to other levels. And usually the result was good. The basic reform issues were digitalization, transparency, and transformation of public administration. The reform of public administration is part of a bigger story, and it is a step forward towards European countries and the regions. The European policies have to come alive, they have to be communicated, they have to be accessible for the citizens. And the citizens, on the other hand, have to know that they can influence the life of their local communities. And we are at the beginning of that process. I personally have many of us working in the legal and regional authorities. We are aware of that. And many things coming from the regional, from local, then regional, and then national, and finally European level. We were participating in all that. The Croatian Association of Counties as a roof organization of the Croatian counties, all Croatian counties, which means that we are all part of this association. We are actively participating and working together with the Office of the European Parliament in Croatia. We have recognized how important it is to work on joint projects and to exchange information. One of these projects is a long-term project, the School of the Ambassadors, European ambassadors. It is actually implemented in all the EU countries, so we have joined in as well. The goal is to increase the level of communication and the awareness of European values and on the rights European citizens have. So during the 3 years of the program, this will cover 55 gymnasiums and professional schools in Croatia. And all these young people will become our ambassadors because they are the pillars of our society and they are the ones who will introduce changes to the society. In a partnership with the European Parliament, we have another project going on that is Like My County. This is a county we'll love, which we're already implementing for 5 years in a very interesting way, through photographs where we try to show the special features and interesting features of the counties. We have presented it in a digital exhibition. This is a tradition we already have and we have integrated now in the European story. When talking about European politics, I have to mention the European funds. This is the financial period behind us, but especially the one in front of us, shows how important this European mechanism is and how much it influenced the development of our business and of our economy. The cohesion policy, the policy of fishery, other policies, agricultural policies, they are all equally important and they all support the development of our citizens, doesn't matter where they live, along with the other classic types of politics, for example, the politic of with which we have managed the pandemic. Well, that was the moment where we had to create new politics, and the economy and health system definitely has suffered a lot, and we can feel it on every level. But that was important that the European Union has reacted very fast and very efficiently. They have supported us and showed us which are the benefits of such politics in all the European countries. The compromise in long-term budget development is very important. We have achieved such a compromise, which means that new 16 billion euro are meant to mend the pandemic crisis. It provides other possibilities. It provides an opportunity for the new generation. And 1 billion euro will be used to mend the flexibility of future crises. in the negotiations around the financial sector, it is very important to communicate things properly, and that is where communication is so important. In European unions, we hear voices in different associations, such as the European Board of Regions, which is the closest association in comparison to the European Parliament. The county is also a level that on a regional level can define goals and be a very good partner to the government of the Republic of Croatia when talking about the local and regional needs. The information we get from our citizens and the possibility to communicate it through projects towards other levels of our government, of our administration, helps us to become faster, to become more efficient. But on the other hand, only with a good coordination of all the levels of administration and government, we can move forward in a direction where our citizens expect us to go. Once again, thank you very much for providing us the opportunity to talk about innovation and communication in public administration, because we have witnessed digital transformation and the possibilities it provides, because the systems of slow systems are behind us. We believe that there will be also new platforms opened which will be directed to the ones who are most important to us, and those are the citizens of Croatia, the citizens of the EU.
Zahvaljujem gospodinu Pauku
Thank you, Mr.
iz
Pauk
Šibenika.
from
Čuli
Šibenik.
ste ključne i zanimljive
You've
podatke.
heard some
Zaista
very
Hrvatska
important
zajednica
data.
županija,
Definitely, the
moramo
Croatian
reći da je
Association of Counties
lider te transparentnosti, ali sve započinje od političara. Gospodin Pauk razumije važnost komunikacije, vrednuje je kao i svi ostali župani i nastoji Hrvatska zajednica županija biti taj lider, ne samo na području komunikacije sa građanima, nego i interne komunikacije i edukacije, što nije lako jer svaka županija ima svog župana, a svaki župan ima svoje poglede. I zaista je izazovno uskladiti komunikacijske poruke i poslati jasnu poruku da smo tu servis građana i Hrvatska zajednica županija, kao što ste čuli, dobila je u transformaciji javne uprave 200 novih zadataka kako bi se olakšale procedure građana da ne moraju ići u ključna ministarstva, što je veliki pomak
to make the life of the citizens easier. The result is that the citizens are now turning to the association and not to the central government. Now our spot and then a new presentation.
Evo, poštovani
Here we are
sudionici,
again.
vratili smo se
We
u
are
naš
back in the
Focus
studio.
Jako je izazovno
It is very challenging
komunicirati
to
na
communicate
svim nivoima
on all
za
the
vrijeme
levels
COVID-19,
during COVID-19,
osim privatnog sektora
except the
i
private
javna
sector.
uprava, našla
The
se
public
u
administration
velikim
has also
komunikacijskim
found
izazovima.
itself facing great
Jednostavno
communication
ova situacija
challenges,
nas sve
and this
mijenja,
situation is
ali
changing
nam
us
šalje jasnu
all,
poruku
but it
da,
sends us also a
nakon
clear
ovog
message that
razdoblja
after
više
this
ništa
period,
neće biti isto.
nothing will be the same.
Međutim, u
However,
komunikacijskom smislu
in the
imamo
communicational
različite
sense, we
dobne
have
granice građana
different
i
age
željena
groups of the
poruka,
citizens,
treba
and the
doći do
desired
svakog od njih.
message
To
should
također
reach each one of them.
predstavlja izazov
This is an
u
additional
strategijama
challenge in the
komunikacija.
strategies of communication.
Ono što je po meni jako važno je
What I
da
see as
će,
very important
javne
is
uprave,
that
javne tvrtke
public
morati
companies and
redefinirati
public
svoje
administrations will have
dokumente
to
komunikacijske
redefine their
strategije,
communication
morat će ih
strategies and
nadopuniti,
documents.
i
They will
nadograditi sa
have to
posebnom
upgrade them
sekcijom
with a special
vezano za
section
digitalnu komunikaciju i digitalnu
concerning
pismenost.
digital literacy
Jer,
and digital
prema
communication.
određenoj analizi,
Because according to one analysis that
koju
was
smo napravili
made,
iz a priori
which we made
instituta,
from the A priori
rezultati
institute,
nisu baš
the
dobri.
results have
Nažalost,
not
velik
been
broj
very
općina,
good.
gradova,
A large number of cities,
nema još
municipalities
takve dokumente.
does not have such
Postoje
documents in
dokumenti
place.
komunikacijske strategije,
There are
ali oni nisu,
communication strategy
nažalost,
documents, but
nadopunjeni
unfortunately they
sa
are not
tim digitalnim
upgraded and
strategijama.
updated
Šta to
with
znači,
these strategies.
vezano
What does
za
it mean concerning
za javne uprave i javne tvrtke?
public companies
znači
and public
definitivno
administration?
da se u
It
financijskim
means
proračunima
that
moraju
in their
redefinirati
budgets
stavke
they
i
have
mora
to
se više dati za
redefine
komunikaciju.
items and
Evo, mi ćemo sada otići do
a lot
Skoplja.
larger
Nadam
amounts
se
for
da
communication.
je na vezi
We are now
naše,
going
sljedeće
to
predavanje,
Skopje in northern
koje će
Macedonia,
održati
and
Violeta
our
Cvetkovska.
next
Ona je
presentation will be
pionirka
held
na
by Violeta
području
Cvetkovska.
komunikacije unutar
She is a
javne uprave
pioneer in the
Sjeverne
communication
Makedonije.
within the public
Violeta je
administration of
inače
northern
diplomirala
Macedonia.
kao psiholog
Violeta
20
is a
godina.
graduate psychologist with
Ima
20
20
years
godina
experience.
iskustva u novinarstvu na
She's an
pozicijama
experienced
novinara,
journalist
urednika i
on the position
kolumnista.
also
A posljednjih
of
više od
editor
10
and
godina bavi
columnist.
se odnosima
In the
s
last 10
javnošću.
years, she
Te je
has been
trenutačno
dealing
PR
with
menadžer općine Karkoš. Dobitnica brojnih
communication with
priznanja.
the public.
Ona će nam izravno
Currently,
Skoplja,
she's a PR manager
govoriti
of the
o
municipality
sljedećoj
of
temi,
Karposh.
a
She has
dok
won
se
numerous
ona,
awards,
ne
and she
uključi,
will speak
ne
to
znam da li
us
je online,
about
da li
practical
možemo
views and
krenuti.
experiences
Možemo pogledati
relating
još
to
jednu
forthcoming
poruku.
elections in the time of COVID-19. Please exclude the option interpretation now.
Evo, u Skoplju nas
In
čeka Violeta
Skopje,
Cvetkovska,
we have Violeta
pa molim
Cvetkovska,
Violetu da
and
započne
I
sa
will
svojim
ask
izlaganjem.
Violeta to start with her presentation. Do we hear each other?
Čujemo se, evo, izvolite.
Good day to everyone. I will be an extension of Mr. Pauk on the topic of how COVID influenced the work of municipalities in Macedonia, and I will try to present our actual experiences that we had. For us communicators, the pandemic is truly a major crisis. It is a health crisis, but also a communication crisis. It means that all the rules of the PR are changing.
Je, čujemo se, izvolite, izvolite.
Please go
Violeta.
on. This means that the crisis, which is lasting for 10 and more months, and although we hope for the best, but it will last just as long. Within the crisis, you know that you don't exit the crisis the same as you were before. It leaves scars and traces. But what should we do during the crisis? Empirically, we have a finished template. We are doing SWOT analysis, the analysis of the current situation, political, environmental, social, and we are assessing our strong and weak sides, our threats and opportunities. When we get all this knowledge, in accordance with that, we design our actions. We are trying to be fast, to be at least one step ahead of the crisis. What does it mean on the level of municipality? At first, it was a shock, fear, panic, expectation, struggle for life. All of this was happening practically at the same moment. And what should we do in such a situation? The local government in such circumstances, this we have seen at the very beginning, together with the headquarters, with the crisis headquarters, we have seen this is one of the savior ships who is sailing the seas during the storm, and the waves are hitting this ship, but this ship has an aim to be a savior and to save as many people who are drowning in the sea. At the very beginning, Karposh was a municipality with the greatest number of infected and the greatest number of deaths from coronavirus. If not the first, it was the second within the city of Skopje and within 80 municipalities in the whole of Macedonia. We have 63,000 inhabitants and quite a number of older people who were sensitive and prone to infection. So what did we do during these 10 months back? As a local government, I will summarize it briefly. We were in this race with the epidemic. We were fighters for health. We didn't have much choice. We had our own regular programs of work, which we had to adapt to new conditions. And we wanted to make life as bearable as possible for our citizens. From the times of March and April, we tried to anticipate what will happen with the pandemic, and we instituted means of prevention. We started with mass disinfection of public spaces, all public services, entrances into buildings, post offices, and so on. And we did this disinfection about 8 times. Even before the national crisis headquarters announced measures, we instituted those measures within our municipality. This meant the supply with disinfectants and masks, especially of all the elderly population. We worked together with the Red Cross, with the Scouts during the quarantine and restriction of movement. We used Twitter, Instagram, and so on, and we were giving instructions to the citizens on a daily basis. We told them where to seek help and how to seek that help. Municipality was issuing work permits for all the sectors of the economy.
Dada, izvolite.
Please go on. We don't hear the lady. We don't hear her. We also used the internet in all the 14 urban communities on our territory to include as many population as possible to be informed on all the measures of protection. With all of this, we strengthened the feeling of security, and we also cooperating with the Embassy of the Czech Republic. We were distributing face masks free of charge to all the inhabitants of our municipality. We also worked with educational institutions, starting with kindergartens, elementary school. We have 10 kindergartens. We checked the internet connection. We were giving equipment to the schools. We also made a rebalancing of the municipality budget and adapted it to the crisis. We instituted a sector as a part of the budget for disinfection of public buildings. In order to express a respect for the health workers in saving our lives, on the day of our municipality, the 3rd of November, we gave an award to one lady who is a nurse working in the hospital in the Department for Febrile States, who has done a lot to save human life. This frontline struggle that she has been making, we wanted to stress and to give her an award. So what are the messages that we have drawn from this crisis? You should be open and transparent in every way. You should be quick and timely. You must communicate with all the segments of the society. You should reach out to everybody who needs help, as well to those who can help. This includes the volunteers, NGOs, and companies. Everybody who was able to give help was welcome. The local government is not something above the citizen. This is an entity to serve the citizens. Through our actions, we wish to send a message not to do by yourself, include the experts, doctors, medical personnel, enable free psychological help, keep open the telephone hotlines, all of this strengthens the trust of the citizens that we are doing something and that we are doing it well. You should be prepared for all scenarios, including the worst case scenarios. Be tolerant, be patient, because people are nervous, people are anxious in this crisis. On the hotlines, often you get meaningless questions, but please be patient and strengthen the communication team. You should reduce the populism to the minimum because it will return as a boomerang. Be realistic and not too optimistic. Do not give false hopes. From the humane and communication aspect, the important thing is emotion, which we decided to send to all the citizens of our municipality, to give them a feeling that they are not alone, that their municipality takes care of them, and that we shall overcome together.
Evo, čuli smo gospođu Violetu Cvetkovsku iz Skoplja sa jako važnim porukama. Cijela ova situacija nije jednostavno kako za građana, ali niti za zaposlene u javnoj upravi, javnim tvrtkama koje više nego ikada moraju naći unutač svojim obiteljskim izazovima snage da pravovremeno, kontinuirano sa umirujućim porukama, točnim porukama u vrijeme COVID-a budu dostupni građanima. Što više informacija, to je bolje, jer što više informiramo građane, to smanjujemo mogućnost da će građani više nas pitati. Eto, čuli smo gospođu Cvetkovsku, hvala puno vam što ste pripremila ovo izlaganje, a sada slijedi reklamni blok i najava sljedećeg predavanja. Evo nas ponovo u našem Fokus studiju. Vrijeme je za naše sljedeće predavanje. Kristijan Špar javlja se iz Brisela. On je nedavno izabrani glavni tajnik Skupštine evropskih regija. Inače, bivši glasnogovornik Evropske komisije, ali i bivši direktor Konrad Adenauer zaklade
former spokesman of the European Commission and a former head of the CAS media program of Southeast Europe. He has dealt there with these jobs in more than 10 countries. He's very experienced in his work with media, and he speaks very often on international political and media communication platforms. Mr. Christian Spar, hello, you're in Brussels. The microphone is yours. Dobar dan, Daniel. Evo, doista me veseli što vas mogu svih virtualno sresti. Doista me veseli što sam evo ovdje proveo preko 10 godina u Daniel, tako da me doista veseli. I tebe, Holgeru, što se ponovno srećemo. Da, doista, veseli me što sam dio ovoga. Naravno bi me više veselilo da sam u Hrvatskoj, ali i ni Brisel nije loš. Lijepo je mjesto, znate. Doista me veseli što mogu doprinijeti vašoj konferenciji na novoj funkciji, jer evo ovog mjeseca gdje će se održati sastanak europskih za jasne, jednostavne tehnologije, kako uključiti mlade i kako bolje pristupiti donošenju odluka. Pomažemo svim svojim partnerima, a to su regionalne vlade, kako mogu napredovati bolje sa svojim projektima, kako mogu dobiti novac i pristupiti fondovima, kako mogu razmjenjivati ideje i razmišljanja između vlada unutar Europe. Vjerujemo da su pred nama mnogi izazovi i mnogi problemi zbog COVID-a, ali o tome možemo i kasnije detaljnije razgovarati. Naš rad možete pratiti na svim platformama društvenih medija, to je Facebook, Twitter, Instagram i većina naših govornika, naših sudionika dolazi iz regionalnih i lokalnih vlada, tako da vjerujem da danas imamo puno toga o čemu možemo razgovarati. I evo vraćam se na glavni ekran. Govorio sam na početku o novim izazovima što se tiče COVID-a. Za regionalne vlade, onda ćemo preći kasnije na temu komunikacije. Za regionalne vlade znači da često imaju na raspolaganju manje proračune, manje iznose, a često ne mogu pokrivati ove potrebe jer njihovi zadaci sve više već rastu.
Health management, for instance, but they also need to think about long-term development goals. So this is a bit of a contradictory situation. And then another development that we see is that in these times of crisis, the national governments take more competencies. And if we talk about decentralization, if we talk about local political management, then I think it's important to discuss how powerful are the national governments and how powerful are the regional and local governments. And in these times of crisis, there is a tendency that the national governments become stronger and the local and regional governments become weaker. And this is something that we want to address politically also in Brussels. So the local administrations, especially, they are overwhelmed with the complexity of these administration tasks currently. And they are also wondering how to access funding from the European Union. So there is a bit of a risk of a development gap between the cities, the capitals, and between the rural regions. But I still believe that there are also new opportunities in these times of crisis. I mean, I never really know whether this is a quote of Albert Einstein or a Chinese saying that in every crisis is also an opportunity. But there are, of course, the new funding programs of the European Union. There is the new multi-annual financial framework in preparation, but also the Next Generation EU package as a response to the COVID crisis. And I believe that the COVID crisis can also be a catalyst for sustainable development in the fields of digital, green technologies, health, and cross-border cooperation. We've seen how important this is. And now this new investment can be channeled in these fields of sustainable policy making. Also, we all realize that we don't need to gather in big crowds in the city center anymore. We can work from home, and I think there is a rebalancing between the rural regions and the cities, in the sense that that rural regions or the outskirts of cities can become more attractive again, and this is quite an interesting observation. So as AER, we are helping our members grasping these opportunities. We have a number of member regions from Croatia and many other countries in your region. And what we are doing now is that we are having less discussions, less only talking about experiences, but offering training to our members and inviting specialists to help them how to organize, for instance, to access funding of the European Commission. But I think in this whole context, it's also important not only to talk about funding, not only to talk about money, but also to talk about values, about democratic experience of citizens, and about good governance. And this is where we come to communication challenges. I think right now the trust of citizens in the European project is at stake. People want to believe in togetherness, people want to believe in an economic perspective, and they want to believe in a viable future. And right now, Europe, the EU, is showing that countries can work together, that the European Commission is increasingly steering policies for the crisis. But still, the trust in political management on the ground is relatively low. I saw a new opinion poll made by Kantar and presented earlier this month by the European Committee of the Regions, and basically in 15 countries of the EU, citizens tend to trust their regional or local authorities, and in 12 countries of the EU, citizens tend to not trust their local and regional authorities. So there is quite a long way to go. And then also in earlier polls that we saw from the European Commission 2 years ago, maybe Tina can say more about this. We also saw that the trust in the EU, and this is basically a constant finding, that the trust in the EU in general is higher than in national politics. So contrary to what some people believe, not Brussels needs to regain trust, but national and regional authorities need to gain and regain trust in this situation. And as we are talking also about the neighborhood of the European Union and countries that still have a, let's say, a strong development in their political systems, overcoming the consequences of communism, of transition. Then also, of course, the challenges are particularly high. Then often lower budgets, but this is not the main issue. I think we also need to keep in mind the high degree of political polarization that we have in some of the countries I'm just reading the chat. Okay, thank you for the messages. We have a high degree of political polarization, and then in some countries, in new member states of the European Union, but also in the neighborhood, countries still need to make fundamental decisions about pro-EU or anti-EU, about liberal democracy or strong state, how to deal with the past, these discussions. And then also in some of the countries, we have a media landscape that is not properly functioning, not properly, offering objective guidance to the citizens or objective information. So it's a difficult environment for political communicators. I remember one of the participants in a workshop that we did in Southeast Europe, who said, I am more concerned with defending ourselves against the attacks of our political adversaries, so I don't have the time to convey our real own messages. And there we are. We have a question, of course, of communication management, and the expectations of the citizens are growing, because especially the younger generation that has experienced Erasmus, EasyJet generation, they have had the opportunity to compare political systems and compare different societies, and they are asking for transparency. They are asking for a pragmatic political style that is not for one particular group of the society, but for the benefit of the whole society. So less ideology and more solutions for the daily life is what a lot of citizens, especially younger citizens, want. And I believe we have two contrary developments in Europe. On the one hand, we have a tendency towards more populism, and on the one hand, we also have a demand for more pragmatism. Right now we cannot really make a prediction, whether the populists will increase their influence, or how strong the contrary development will be. But I believe that in Europe there is no way back to an omniscient leader with unlimited power in European countries. So this is why I think in terms of communication, we need to make sure that political communication managers, they have a true advisory function for politicians. Politicians need a strong and professional communication management, not just their gut instinct. And they should make sure that communication managers can use a methodical approach, can use demographic and sociological data, can practice agenda setting. And these are questions that we are also discussing, as you know, Daniel, within CCOM. This is the association of the public sector communication managers that we founded a few years ago in the Balkans. And now I'm happy to discuss further with you if there is time, and to listen to the other speakers.
Yeah, thank you. Zahvaljujem se Kristijanu
Thank you,
Šparu. Evo, Želimo
Spa.
puno uspjeha
I
kao glavnom
wish you
tajniku
to
Skupštine
succeed
Evropskih regija
as
i vjerujem
the
da će se naša
main
suradnja na planu
Secretary, the Secretary General of the Assembly of European
komunikacije i
Regions. I
edukacije
believe that the
nastaviti preko
communication,
fokus
education
konferencije.
seminars will continue
Mi
through our
nastavljamo
focus
dalje,
conference as well.
podsjetimo
Let
se
us
kroz
continue and
reklamni
allow
blok,
me to
ko su sa
remind
nama,
you
ko su
who
naši
is
partneri ove
with
godine.
us and who is our partner this year. Let's have a look.
Evo, vratili smo se ovdje u studio.
We are back in the studio.
Za mene je ovo sve novo,
For me, this is all very new,
izazovno, ali
very
nadam se
challenging,
da je vama, kao i
but
meni,
I hope
jako
that
zanimljivo.
you, just as I, find it very interesting. Our next speaker comes from the town of Labin. His presentation about the communication challenges in the city of Labin, who has managed to position itself as the most transparent town in Istria. Mr. Nino Bajon is an information advisor in the administrative department of the mayor, city council, and of the general affairs of the city of Labin. I don't know if we have Mr. Bajon on the line. Good morning. What is the time in Labin today? We have nice weather today. I thank you in the name of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and the A Priori Institute for accepting our invitation. Good morning, everybody, once again. I greet you in my own name and the city of Labin. I am honored to be able to share with you some of my experiences, and I thank you for the opportunity to take part in this project. I wish to commend the organizers for coming up with this idea, which will upgrade the consciousness of each one of us. I was attracted by this conference because it concerns the perception of public administration, which is not superb, but it is important to discuss it. I will speak about 7 challenges of communication in the city of Labin, and I will try to describe them in more detail. First is the already mentioned stigma of local administration and every other public service. This perception is not very good, and we must upgrade it every day in order to change this perception by the people. In the city of Labin, I can speak as an official who has been 4 years in this position, that this perception is nevertheless improving. We have seen major positive shifts through our transparency, through publication of everything that we are doing in the city, and through timely information. According to the surveys, we have been pronounced the most transparent city in Istria. We are trying to communicate even the little details that we are doing as the city administration. In this time of pandemic, we have increasing use of social media. We are also using the Viber platform, and we have founded a special Viber group for our entrepreneurs and people in the businesses, where we speak about the measures of support to make their life easier. Our vision is to become a smart city, and this is the goal of our development. We also want to develop a one-stop shop so that all the citizens, all the entrepreneurs can get all information from city information on one place. I believe that we are on a good road to realize this project, and that we will do it for the benefit of the whole community, and to shatter finally this stigma of administration divorced from the people. Secondly, how to make every piece of information reach the target audience in an understandable way. This is not always easy. As all the communication channels are open today, we use the social media, but also local TV, local radio. We publicize our newsletters. We have time slots where people can put their questions to the city mayor, irrespective of their age group, the generation. Nextly, communication with the media. As I mentioned already, we have a number of media, and news reaches the end user very quickly. Really, in our city, on a very small place, we have a large concentration of media channels. We are trying also to communicate all the questions that the people and the entrepreneurs are putting to the city government. So all of this is useful for our citizens, and it is good that we have these numerous channels. I have to say that the media themselves are agents who are starting certain issues, certain questions, who come up with questions about the real concerns of the people, and who are making us react in a proper and timely manner. The next point, I have called it internal communication challenges. This is something that I find very difficult to put up with, but that it is normal in any kind of job. Even as a young employee, I was very depressed by how this functions. When you expect an information to be true and given in a timely manner, irrespective of we are speaking about investments worth millions, or some events organized by the city, or a company in partial ownership of the city. oftentimes there have been difficulties and delays in communication, and here oftentimes you need to be persistent in order to get your message through. One good thing, and I am very happy about, that after some beginner mistakes, all the efforts that we have made are falling on fertile ground, and that the flow of information is good. I must say that to myself as a person in charge of communication, I find that all relevant communication are reaching me in a timely manner, and this enables me to reach the citizens and to get a good response from them. This communication with the citizens is my next point. I have already touched upon it. This communication should be on a daily basis. Some people find it tedious when we speak about small investments, about details, but every news, every Facebook post will ultimately reach somebody for whom this is very important. So I'm proud to say that the administration of the city of Labin, together with the mayor, has approached our job in this way, especially being transparent about the city budget, about the spending of every bit of our money. My next point is communication toward the investors. As we know, for the development of every community, it is important to support the investors so that they can develop their production and offer employment. Labin and Rabat is well known for tourism, for accommodation. We have numerous investments in tourism, especially in the past years, when the total investments were around 400 million kunas. Mostly these are private houses of various categories, and the city has been active in investing in this area as well. We are also investing in industry, and we want to attract investors. I must mention here one of our industrial zone, which is one of the 3 best in Croatia, where companies produce very sophisticated equipment, state-of-the-art equipment. This is a very interesting story because the land used for this industrial zone was very cheap when we bought it, and we attracted a number of incentives in building it and putting it to use. And almost every day we are seeing new interests, the startups. We are also financing all the infrastructure and equipment, and we are introducing a number of incentives for the competitiveness and for employment. It is encouraging to see that we have numerous small companies who are competitive even on a worldwide scale. And we have a number of young experts who are moving into Labin, who are setting up their life here. The development of entrepreneurship and the immigration of young experts into Labin has also reflected itself in the real estate market. Practically all the apartments that are built are being sold immediately. The last point I want to mention is Labin as a brand. the communication of city as a brand. We know that this is a city of extraordinary history. It was built on the basis of a mine. This was a coal mine which was very rich 30 years ago, and now we are using it for tourist purposes. In branding Labin, what we do is enable people to descend 60 meters deep down into the earth to see the former coal mine. We have recently refurbished on-land equipment of the coal mine. This whole story about the coal mine is almost unique in Europe, and I believe that the communication of our brand has shown the pride that we have in our industrial heritage. As regarding branding, I must also mention that we are well known for our speech, which was protected last year as a non-material heritage. We had a great intellectual of Matija Vlačić-Ilirik, whose anniversary we wanted to celebrate this year, but we were forced to cancel it. Perhaps a final remark. I hope I was interesting to you, and I hope I contributed something to your conference. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bajan, and his presentation. I think it can give us a lot of inspiration. Thank you from Labin. After our advertisement, we will go to Brussels again.
Hey, hi, Tina. Dobar dan svima koji ste se tek sada uključili u šesto izdanje Fokus konferencije online. Nalazimo se u zagrebačkom studiju, a sad ćemo se prebaciti u Brisel. Velika mi je čast što se mom pozivu odazvala gospođa Tina Zrnaci. Ona je svoju karijeru započela u Ujedinjenim narodima radeći u Središnjoj Africi.
Started in the United Nations, first working in Africa, then in the United Nations in New York, where she worked on development, refurbishment and management. She worked also as a counselor and was responsible for the European network CSR Europe, and she was the communication leader for fishery and maritime affairs. At the moment, she's the leader of the Strategic Communication Unit at the European Commission for Communication, and she will speak about the key communication strategies of the European Union. The floor is yours, Ms. Onatsi.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much for inviting me. Can you all see my screen? I will need, you can see my screen?
Da, vidimo, yes, we see your screen.
Yeah?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, very good. I just need to turn the interpretation off so I don't hear. Can you tell me how to do that? I'm sorry. I'm trying to find that because I see only mute and unmute. I'm really sorry about that.
Focus konferencija do
Let's
sada
not forget that the
održana
Focus Conference until now was
Hrvatskoj,
held in Croatia,
Hercegovini i
Bosnia and
Srbiji.
Herzegovina, and Serbia.
Vjerujemo da ćemo
We
sljedeće
believe
godine
that
ponovo
next
biti
year
sa fokus
again
konferencijama
we will
i
hold
u
our
Sarajevu
focus
i u
conferences, but
Beogradu,
will be
ali
then
i
in
po
Sarajevo
prvi
and
puta u
Belgrade, and the
Sloveniji.
first time in
Tako
Slovenia, we
da,
believe.
Fokus konferencija
The Focus Conference represents the only regional platform that speaks about communication in public administration and public companies. Our motto this year is closer to people. I am dealing with communication for 30 years, and sometimes I am sad because the effort of my colleagues sometimes is not valued properly. I'm speaking of those working in the public administration offices. The reasons are to be searched for in the many affairs, because whenever a case of corruption comes up and becomes public, then everybody working in public administration becomes the same. That is what the people think, that everybody working there is the same, which is not true. We have to speak about the importance of communication in public administration, and we have to inform people about our work. So we're getting back to Brussels. Tina, the floor is yours.
I'm so sorry for this technical issue, but now I'm back, and I'd like to start where I was. So thanking you, first of all, for inviting me here to talk a little bit about what the EU has been doing in terms of communicating and what some plans are for the way forward. So let me jump right in, since I took some of your time already with my problems. Oops, now why can't I go to next? Okay, so let me show you a little bit what we have been doing so far in terms of what we call corporate communication, which is about communicating what the EU is as a whole, what it does, and translating its political priorities and its achievements into narratives that are understandable, relatable to people, and of course engaging with people in the channels that they use, and not necessarily, expecting people to read our press releases or coming to our social media platforms, though we would very much like that. But we need also to engage where people, where the conversations are about the EU are happening. So how do we do it? We have a very simple acronym, which is spelling out Europe, and we always use E is for European emblem. So we try not to muddle people with all the institutional names, but really use the European emblem for all our corporate communication. The U stands for unified messaging, trying really to have one unifying, coherent message across all platforms. The R is for using real stories of real people who have benefited, who have been in part of what the EU does, and a lot of times we ask them to tell the story. The O is for ordinary, meaning really to not speak in a very technocratic jargon language, but really target ordinary citizens and people as they speak in their daily life to make ourselves understandable. The P stands for personalizing or customizing to each country, to each types of audience, so that we make sure that we engage with them in a language and in the areas that they are concerned about. And the last E is something that is quite kind of controversial in communication, but everybody agrees that emotions are what really stirs people and triggers people to do things. So we have been in the last few years using more emotion to explain what we're doing and how it affects people. But of course, a lot of things have changed now, and even though our general approach is still there, the coronavirus has been an unprecedented challenge, both for policymakers and for communication. And from the very beginning, even though we had some plans about communicating under the von der Leyen Commission, we have had to switch a lot of these plans to what is happening as a response to the virus and as a response to the recovery plan. And this is what I'd like to briefly touch upon. So when the pandemic struck, the EU responded with a raft of emergency measures to facilitate member states' response. This included from state aid rules, easing of state aid so that member states could support key enterprises. It included the green lanes that allowed trucks with food and medicines to cross borders when a lot of the borders were closed. And of course, it later on included what we did under the SURE program, which is the funding for the short-term employment to support workers and companies. And Croatia, for instance, is receiving 1 billion euros from that program, and half of which was dispersed, as I understand, last week. We have also been working on a vaccine strategy, and you might have heard quite a bit lately, because as of yesterday, the Commission has been able to procure a total of 430 million vaccines from the up-and-coming deals that it has done with the key manufacturing pharmaceutical companies that have made a lot of progress on this front. And finally, we have been working very much on dispelling misinformation and disinformation about the virus and the harmful effects that it can have, both on your health and on society in general. And now in response to the vaccine, there's a whole vaccine movement, anti-vaccine movement, that is going to keep people from taking the necessary measures and taking advantage of a vaccine when it becomes available. Let me say a couple of words about the recovery plan, because it's important to set that the communication in the framework of what the recovery is about. This plan, which was unveiled in July and agreed, and is still being, as you know, there's some final stages of approval that still need to happen. But it is an unprecedented plan, both in ambition and in scope. The big parts of it, let's say, have to do with supporting the member states to recover, to repair, and to emerge stronger from the crisis, with a huge public investment program, of which the Next Generation is a big part. There's also a big part about kickstarting the economy and helping the private sector get its investment moving, and to take advantage of all the different key sectors and technologies that will make this recovery a different recovery and not going back to what we were before. And finally, there's the aspect of the learning from the crisis and addressing some of the strategic challenges, and this has to also do with strategic autonomy and some new and the focus also on health in our policy going forward. And you can see the figures of what this means in terms of financial terms. Overall, we're talking about a financial firepower of the EU budget of 1.8 trillion, the biggest ever. So this is going to be a big challenge for everyone, both policy-wise and, of course, communication-wise. But let's look at the recovery from the angle of how we're going to be looking at it from the communication point of view, which is where I come in. We're going to be focusing on the twin transition of the green and digital. And starting with green, why do we focus on this? Because the recovery strategy and the green transition is Europe's growth strategy. We see the transition into green and sustainability as a way for Europe to come out of the crisis, to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, and to take advantage of all the areas of technology where this is going to happen, from the renovation wave that has been launched to renewable energy projects, to the cleaner transport and logistics, including the installation of 1 million charging points for electric vehicles, which is planned, a boost for rail travel and clean mobility. And of course, all this underpinned with a Just Transition Fund that will assist member states to ensure that the support goes also to those that are more affected by these disruptions, because disruptions there will be. We cannot break and change without having disruptions, but we are there also to make sure that those that are most vulnerable to these disruptions are going to be protected. And these transitions, as I said, we're going to make Europe better, more resilient, and strategically autonomous. The next big transformation for the green is the digital, of course, and there we're seeking to invest in all the big areas from connectivity to and 5G, as you know, to the data economy, to high performance computing and AI, and all this by keeping also a very fair business environment to make sure that everybody benefits. And lastly, I want to also talk about the importance of skills and skills in digital, because you cannot invest in these areas unless you really improve and adapt skills, knowledge and know-how. And this is why the EU has put forward a skills agenda for Europe and a pact for reskilling, and it calls on industry, employers, social partners, chambers of commerce, public authorities, education and training providers, and employment agencies to work together to make a clear commitment to invest in training for all working age population across the Union. Moving now to the campaign itself that we're planning to launch next year, probably early in the year, because we need to communicate all these actions, all these policy. Of course, we're not going to communicate everything, and of course, we're going to keep the principles that I mentioned earlier. But we do want to show how ambitious this recovery plan, the Next Generation EU, will be, and how it will help Europe recover, and what the EU's value added is in all this, and how it will help overcome the crisis. And there will be a very strong green focus on the European Green Deal and also on the digital transformation. And obviously, there's going to be some elements around health, but these are the two big, let's say, messages that we will be taking out. And the general message, because Christians spoke about values, and it will be very value-based. It will be also a message of hope, of aspiration, and looking forward to the promise of what is going to happen with this this huge investment in Europe's future. So you all spoke about challenges, and I see how many of them we have in common. And I'd like to point out the ones that we find are specifically for crisis communication, where governments and public authorities need to be credible, correct, and timely. But in fact, in crisis, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty often creates inconsistencies. So just when we need that certainty the most, we don't have it. So this is definitely a challenge that is apparent in all levels of government. And it's also a challenge that creates space, or creates, let's say, the opportunity for misinformation and disinformation to flourish. The other big challenge is the overabundance of information that people are receiving, both from official and unofficial or social media sources. And sometimes it becomes so much that even though people have been seeking more information during the crisis, still it can be overwhelming, and they don't necessarily know how to filter or how to switch from maybe less authoritative information to more authoritative information. And that's definitely a challenge that we have. And finally, the misinformation and disinformation, which is, and the difference is, for those of you who are not maybe so familiar with the terminology, the misinformation is done without intention. If I get a message from somebody that says there's a cure for coronavirus, and they're sending it to me because in good faith, because they believe that could be helpful, that is misinformation. Disinformation is, though, based on something very intentional, intention to harm, intention to disinform, to give you an alternative view, and it's usually run as part of bigger campaigns. So we're also quite active on doing campaigns to increase people's resilience and awareness of these risks. Let me end then with my 5 lessons for communicating, which we have applied in the past, and we will continue to apply. And I think they are lessons that can be shared with all communicators. And of course, I'm sure you all practice them. It's about making your communication strategy and outreach plans based on the audience that you're targeting, and really make sure that you know your audience. Knowing means also listening, engaging, and having this feedback loop. Keeping the focus on human stories. For us, it's extremely important to make the link with at the human level, to make policy tangible, relevant, and relatable at an everyday level, and to show empathy in order to connect meaningfully. We also believe very much in pre and post testing of communication. We can use focus groups, online surveys, but do use testing to know what is the actual impression of your audiences, and don't just rely on your own gut feeling. And I spoke about the appropriate channels for each audience, and I'm going to end with a very important tip that I'm sure you all also are aware of, that you need to measure, to adapt and evaluate all the time to make sure that you keep in touch with what is happening and you have the results, because the modern technology allows us to do a lot of this kind of monitoring in real time as we're communicating, and allows us also to shift or to tweak our communication on the spot. So I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. Here are some of the main channels where you can reach out to us, see what we're doing, ask questions, follow us, and thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Yeah. Tina, thank you so much that you found time for us. I'm sure that I will need you again. Thank you for your presentation. And we are going now to see our promotion online. Možemo pogledati naše reklame i idemo na naše sljedeće predavanje da ne kasnimo. Tina. Evo nas ponovo u studiju, Focus studiju. Svima vama koji
Here we are again. Have joined us now. This is the Focus Conference on Communication and Innovation in Public Companies. Our next presentation will be from Zagreb. I'm honored that Mr. Krešo Glavac has accepted our invitation. He is currently acting head of public relations of the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. He is a man with a rich diplomatic experience as an ambassador of Croatia in Malaysia, Vietnam, Burma, Laos and Cambodia. He has won a number of awards, among others as the best digital ambassador of Southeastern Europe. Mr. Glavac has accepted the challenge of coordinating public relations during the Croatian presidency of the EU Council, and he will speak about this in his presentation. Mr. Glavac, are you there?
Tehnika narodu uvijek predstavlja izazov. Čujemo se,
yes, we hear each other. Welcome to the conference.
Evo, ne bih rekao da je pozornica vaša, nego
I will not say that the floor is yours, but that the ether is yours. Thank you for your introductory words. I greet you from the Zrinjevac Park. Greetings to Mr. Haibach and to all the participants of this conference. I'm honored to participate with you today. As our time frame is 15 minutes, I will not go too broadly, as the title of my presentation suggests, what the Croatia did during the presidency of the EU. It has done a lot, and we would need a whole panel to encompass all that we wanted and what we achieved in the Croatian presidency. Because here the focus is on media and communication, I will concentrate on our goal and our work that we did in the 14-member team, who was divided between the Zagreb team and the Brussels team. Because of course the presiding is on 2 locations, in our permanent representation in Brussels. There we had the spokesman. On the other hand, we had the Zagreb team, who was in charge of web support. We had a web page of our presidency, we had social media, and I would like to touch upon these in the first place. The goal of the whole presidency was directed to younger population. Why so? Because we find ourselves in very frequent, very fast times, speaking socially and in every way. The young should be educated towards the policies. They should be drawn nearer to the policies, especially of the EU. And our goal was to send a message through the media, let us call them traditional media, but also the new digital media. And we have been very satisfied with that and with the results, as well as with the approach that we have given ourselves. Of course, the policies of the EU, which have given us a framework, and they were very important. This is the current Green Deal, something on which we focused ourselves during the presidency, on our meetings and paper releases, using almost nothing of paper documents. We tried also to send a message to the journalists and the whole press team, a message that we are aware of the time that we live in and the importance of implementing the green policies. As regards the presidency itself, there was an institutional framework. The preparations lasted 2 years. We had to set up the secretariat. We had various teams dealing with logistics, human resources, communication and cultural activities. So it was a very complex task, taking 2 years of preparation. This was our first presidency, and we really wanted to do it as best as possible. Unfortunately, we were hit by the corona crisis, which happened in the midst of our presidency. We started in January this year. The key news was the Brexit, and we thought that Brexit would mark our presidency, but unfortunately the corona crisis has overshadowed this, and it has taken away from us the opportunity to show that we are really doing a good job in this presidency, especially the summit which was due to happen in May in Zagreb. Unfortunately, this summit could not have been held. We had several meetings where I would especially single out the meeting of the ministers of foreign affairs. There was a foreign affairs council. Also there was a Gibnik, with which we completed in March this normal part of our presidency. Social networks played an important role, especially in the digital segment, to make our content attractive and actual, because our focus was the younger population. We had an active Twitter account, we had Instagram and Facebook. Just for comparison, Facebook account, our predecessors like Finland did not have a Facebook account, but we opened it, we started from zero, and we had around 5,000 followers. It was only in Croatian language. We had an Instagram account, which was a bit exotic social group, because the younger group participated in it. We had excellent results here. We had around 692 posts. The Netherlands presidency was the first with a number of posts. We came second. Finnish presidency had just over 100, Austrian just over 300. So our focus was on the younger population, and the overall result of all the digital social networks was that 61% of our users were in the period, in the age group between 18 and 30. This was the goal that we wanted to achieve. Of course, we had a Twitter as an obligatory media of business communication. It attracted around 10,000 of followers. It was very active, interactive, and it continued to be the social network of our permanent representatives in Brussels. The digital media are the indicators of how we are treading on our path. They have shown us how to formulate the content and how to target our interest groups. Another important issue is that we dedicated ourselves to the content. We didn't want it to be dry, only presentation of, or only giving pictures of somebody shaking hands. We wanted even to be a little bit provocative and to walk on the edge of acceptability, but certainly we made some provocative contents. I myself was directly in charge of this kind of content. I asked from my colleagues to achieve this kind of provocation in order to get interaction with the younger population, and this actually happened. We got, I repeat, the results which were expected of us. There were people who didn't like it, of course, who wanted more classical releases, but we wanted to exit the standard calculated approach. We opted for this kind of presentation. Also, there was a cultural program which is indispensable in the presentation of our presidency. We gave it extraordinary importance. Until the lockdown happened, we had 49 cultural presentations throughout the EU. We had a campaign of cravata or the necktie in European cities, in all the capitals of the EU. Our ambassadors and our embassies in agreement with those cities placed the Croatian traditional necktie on one of the people who are important for their city, important personalities for that city. So even in that sense, we wanted to attract interaction with people who are not directly connected to politics. We wanted them to ask the questions, how come we have these checkered red and white necktie? And this received a very good welcome. Also, we had a strong cultural program in terms of exhibitions, theater shows. Our goal was to show modern Croatia, to show what we have. Also, during these 6 months, we used the city of Rijeka as the European capital of culture, and in that way we tried to give an additional focus on Croatia, modern Croatian art, modern Croatian culture, and our society as a whole. Through the political platform, we wanted to use the political platform to give other content, including tourism, of course. I think that my time is slowly running out, and this is where I'm going to stop. To thank you once again for listening to me, and I wish you a lot of success to all the colleagues who will present after me. I think it will be interesting on one of the next focus conferences to open this topic once again, as you said, through a panel format in order for the colleagues involved in communication to get a broader view of the statistics. Because I'm sure that the preparation themselves have taken a lot of time. Croatia wanted to present itself in a high-quality way, and I know that you found yourself in an unexpected shift due to the pandemic. Thank you for taking off your time, and try to stay with us. And now I will ask the studio to remind ourselves of our partners, then we go to Belgrade.
Evo nas ponovo u studiju.
Here we are again in our studio of the Focus Conference on Innovation and Communication in Public Administration. Our next presentation
Iz Beograda nam se javlja Jovana
Comes
Važić koja
from
15 godina radi
Belgrade.
na
The
području
lady's
komunikacija.
name is Jovana Važić. She's the head of communication and coordination department at the National Academy of Public Administration of the Republic of Serbia. In the beginning of her career, she worked in two global marketing agencies, McKinnon Erickson and Leo Burnett. She developed her career and worked on her career with the clients as a regional brand manager for Nike for Balkans and as a manager director for communication in Fruit. In her presentation, she will speak about the education of public administration. Jovana, hello. Welcome. Are you there? We are listening to you. Now the floor is yours. The National Academy for Public Administration in Serbia was our partner in the organization of the Focus Conference in Serbia, and we plan another conference together with them next year. Thank you, Daniel. Well, I hope that you can see the presentation. Allow me to welcome you from our National Academy of Public Administration. My name is Jovana Vašić, and I'm leading the Communication and Coordination Department. We do not see your presentation.
Izazovno je kad smo svi novi u
It is very challenging
novim
when we're
tehnologijama, onda je
all
pomalo
new in
izazovno.
these new
Evo,
technologies,
prezentacija
definitely.
kreće. Je, vidimo, izvoli, Jovana.
I would like to inform you that our National Academy I'm sorry, the tone is not very good. We have been founded in 2018, and once again I would like to say thank you to Daniel. He already said that the first conference we have implemented together, and it was quite successful, and we hope that in a future period there will be a chance to do something like that again. The basic goal from National Academy is to be the support of the government of Serbia on this all-encompassing reform of public administration. We at the Academy try to support our participants and to provide all the skills and all the information to allow them to do the job the best they can in order to allow Serbia to continue their way to Europe. Its way to Europe, I'm sorry. I would like just briefly to turn to the results we have achieved since we were founded. What have we achieved during the past 3 years? If allow me to represent the results in numbers, we can be satisfied with a number from 18,515 civil servants who visited some of our education workshops or seminars. They have understood that it is necessary to educate yourself and to keep up with the time. There is an interest for learning, for lifelong learning. Of course, we have still a lot to do in order to accomplish new skills and learn more in this framework of lifelong learning. The initiative, there was an initiative of the president of our government, and we started a specialized program which is intended for our new leaders in the local self-government departments. What does it mean? This master class will be attended by 60 mayors and municipality presidents, municipality heads. And this has been initiated to provide them with the necessary information and to provide them with information regarding positive information of the administration in order to improve the quality of the information and the quality of communication. The topics the specialist program will cover is the following. This is the management of public politics, local and economic development, basics of financial management, introduction of electronic management, the activation of politics for the youth, the inclusion of the Roma peoples, then the legal framework and key competences, the system of public procurement, improvement of public services, the SC system for the organization of communities, and productive meetings. We have experts being the teachers here, or lecturers, as well as our people, so external professors and our people as well. There are various organizations to participate in the lecturing. All the mayors and all the municipality presidents who will become part of the program, and besides they will develop their skills and knowledge, they will also send a very important message to their colleagues, to their employees, and that will motivate them to choose some program from the academy and start their own way. Something that enables us or eases us to participate there and to hold the workshops is that there is an LMS platform of the National Academy. We have launched it a month before Corona started so that it wasn't too difficult for us to adapt to the new situation. The development of the LMS platform has allowed us to work properly. Today we own a system which is already 1 year old, which increases our productivity on one side. On the other side, it is an innovative technological solution. For this platform, we have received an award in London at the Customer Experience Awards. That is a Gold Award winner in the public sector, which was very important to us to receive such an award because we will be recognized by that easier. Starting from classroom education, we have completely changed to online teaching. This is our LMS platform, and this allows the public servants to join our workshops from anywhere. All they have to do is to choose the workshop or the seminar they want to join in and to organize their time and tell us when they want to join us. And this is now more accessible or easier accessible because they can attend our classes without leaving their offices, which is of course part of the safe health system. We have allowed or enabled civil servants to keep up with trends and to educate themselves because they are our most valuable resource. This is a very good investment. The LMS platform is so important, and we want even to increase the quality and to include more people into our education. These are our results during the COVID-19 pandemic. From March to November 2020, 7,200 users from 300 institutions registered on our platform. We have organized 100 webinars with 73 topics, and almost 4,700 participants joined us. There were 13 online educations and 4 additional ones we are working on at the moment. We are preparing. So altogether, we have held 200 education seminars with around 9,500 participants. Allow me to refer to our communication strategy based on top transparency. This is very motivating, very supporting, and always in a always developing. When talking about transparency, all the interested citizens or all the civil servants can find the proper information on our websites on the seminars and education classes we have at the moment and how many participants have joined in. We have also a network of our contacts where the visitor can see who is teaching. We are cooperating with our institutions through nominated persons, kind of liaison officers. This is our communication and coordination with the different institutions and public companies. This contact person gets an information on time with the webinar list for the next month, and then they provide this information and send it forward to their servants or their colleagues. That is the way how they choose their class. During the pandemic, we thought of how to support the people in order to help them to survive this time of isolation. So besides the webinars and classes we have for civil servants and public administration officers only, we offered free online classes via universities, and they are accessible and offered for free to everybody. We have promoted our platform and social networks, and we turned it into a webinar. This conference today also is using new technologies. So the new technologies have allowed us to continue with our classes, and they helped us to stay close, to stay connected during the lockdown. This is a feeling of not being alone. It is like the motto of this conference, connecting people. We are working on our classes for 2021, and these classes are completely in line with the needs of civil servants and officers in public authorities. We planned 19 topics or 19 different classes with 200 different seminars. As soon as the government of the Republic of Serbia passes this new program, we will present it and introduce it on our web platform. And this will be lectured by 203 of our lecturers. At the moment, we are also working on the accreditation of new lecturers because we wanted to be completely transparent in that segment as well. We have opened a tender for public administration where we wanted to motivate only the best lecturers from the state and private sector, but not the government sector. We would like them to stretch out to us and to register themselves and to start teaching for us. In order to provide the best information possible, we have made a video clip. It is offered on our websites, and all our lecturers can have a look at that. This is our team, our academy team. So this is me, but the academy is a team of 26 people who have worked, each of them in their department, for the academy to be what it is. And this is a very high institution of our public of our academy. So this means that it is sure, and this is a way to succeed here. Please find a way to make your daily routine more interesting, and learning and teaching should never stop. So many greetings from the Coordination Department of the National Academy and our public administration of the Republic of Serbia. I hope that I've succeeded in explaining you how our National Academy of Public Administration works. Thank you.
Hvala I vama, Jovana. Evo, pozdrav iz Beograda.
Thank you. Greetings to Belgrade. We'll be right back after our jingle.
Jovana, super je. Evo nas ponovo u
Here we are again in our focus studio.
Između brojnih sastanaka
Among the
obaveza,
numerous meetings and
će
obligations,
biti sada I
the Minister of Public Administration of the Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Boštjan Koritnik, has found time to join us. He worked as a journalist and editor of the magazine Legal Practice. As an internal lawyer, he was also assistant professor on the Faculty of Law in Ljubljana. I greet Mr. Koritnik. Do we hear each other?
Hvala vam lijepo što ste izdvojili vrijeme.
Thank you for devoting your time to our conference and for being together with us. And I'm glad that you will speak about the directions of public administration of the Republic of Slovenia. Thank you. Greetings to all. Although I'm younger, as you see, it is not difficult for me to speak in Croatian or Serbian. I learned this by reading the comics, but unfortunately I cannot share this due to the foreign participants of this conference, so I will continue in English.
Samo malo. Dakle, the communication of governments with the citizens and businesses is increasingly becoming digital. That has become a necessity even before the pandemic, and users want their services 24/7. They're offered such standard by private sector, so they expect that the government will follow. Okay. So therefore, acceleration of digital transformation to support our users is one of our priorities, and to support, we have prepared some strategic documents with that respect. As a baseline, OECD Digital Government Review of Slovenia 2020 is being prepared, where we were gaining independent insights and valuable information for our further development. You can also see we have the Digital Slovenia 2027 strategy and two important acts. Let me emphasize the National Program of Artificial Intelligence, which we are also preparing. As other countries Slovenia is also offering a specialized portal for the citizens called e-Uprava and a specialized portal for companies called Spot. Our e-government portal is just in these days celebrating 5 years of the latest redesign, and there are several very useful features like accessibility support for people with disabilities, full support for access with mobile devices, foreign language support, free filling of forms with data from central registers, e-payments, and lately, which is since Monday, also e-delivery. There are just a moment. There are numerous services offered on the portal. They can be quickly developed using functionalities for flexible modeling of contents, forms, procedures, data integrations. Use of common building blocks for data exchange and trust services ensure high reliability, standardization, and good manageability. Most sophisticated functionalities are provided for the authenticated users. They can get their forms pre-filled with the real data from the central databases. They can monitor the progress and get the results electronically delivered into safe personal post box within their personal space on the portal. There are also services that can be used without authentication. Such services provide or proved to be useful for the people without electronic identities and are widely used in these times of epidemic when all personal contacts are better to be avoided. Personal space on the portal also offers, you can see that now, also offers the possibility for the users to have a direct insight into their own data contained in various official databases like Central Population Registry data, identification documents, driving licenses, penalty points, police offense records, ownership of cars, real estate, ships, and boats. For the later, unfortunately, I cannot share my personal experience since I don't have a ship or a boat. So I'm really glad to be able to show you these numbers. Current number of registered users on the portal is more than 134,000. And since the renewal of the portal, there are more registered users every year. With each new interesting service, this number, of course, jumps. In the first wave of the COVID epidemic, we had a lot of new users, registered and non-registered. Especially in April, there were a lot of new registered users who used the services, especially related to their residence. During the first COVID crisis in spring this year, a lot of people changed their address because we were not because we were not allowed to cross the borders of the municipalities, and a lot of them have moved to their holiday houses. Others arranged their temporary residence. We cleared that register also. Administrative units were closed for physical visits, of course, and therefore citizens switched to online businesses to the portal e-Uprava. We enabled the submission of application forms even without the use of e-identity. In this case, it is of course necessary to enter all the data in the application form, but applications can be submitted. The offices were closed in that time for the users, and it was the only way to submit the application form. Most frequently used services at that time were change of residence, one-off solidarity help to students, obtaining a certificate of impunity, and renewal of car registration. Now, in the second wave of the epidemic, we created new service with the Ministry of Health and National Institute of Public Health. Someone who has been in contact with an infected person and has to go into isolation can submit an application on the portal e-Uprava with the type of contact, and in the background, the back office system creates a certificate of quarantine at home. It is a proof to the employer for the payment of wage compensation, and registered and non-registered users can submit the application. More than 5,000 such certificates have been issued within the first week only. Our spot portal for the businesses is also very important, even more in these times of the pandemic. The services for the businesses were also additionally offered without certificate so that wider audience could use them. A very important new functionality, electronic sick leave, was introduced on the portal in the beginning of the year, and that was supposed to significantly reduce administrative burden, and it did. Luckily, it did. Before, personal doctors issued a written sick leave certificate to the employee, and then the employee had to deliver this certificate to his employer, and the employer used this certificate to reimburse or give reimbursement claim against Health Insurance Institute. The new solution digitalized this process. Information is now shared between doctors, employers, and health insurance without an active role of the employee. The processes are now fully optimized and digital, and that is very beneficial for the patients, for the doctors, and for the Health Insurance Institute. There are even more benefits, even for the tax administration and for the National Institute for Public Health. Automatic data entry reduces error risks and speeds up time. Also, the transparency is improved. The employers and employees can anytime access their past sick leave data by using the business portal Spot and health insurance portal. Estimated cost savings for all stakeholders included are approximately 11.5 million euros yearly, and that shows clearly that the potential of digitalization is enormous. However, just the digitalization is not enough. The key is optimization by digitalization. That is our goal also. All sophisticated services need to know, of course, who their users are, so the trust can be established and fraud can be avoided, especially when it is necessary to pay attention to personal data. A set of trust services is provided to do that job. Our main central solution under the scope of trust services is so-called CPaaS. It comprises several building blocks providing different trust-related functionalities, similar to NIAS in Croatia, NIAS. It offers authentication for domestic as well as for cross-border EU users. CPaaS also allows cloud-based e-signature. At present, more than 30 different portals integrate this CPaaS to enable smooth access to their services. In the next year, CPaaS will enable also authentication based on electronic mandates. In Slovenia, most of the e-identities and e-signatures rely on qualified digital certificates issued by either governmental or private providers. According to the last official measurement, only around 25% of Slovenian citizens are capable to access e-governmental services. We are aware that the complexity of the present solutions result in rather low take-up of e-services, and during the last 2 years, citizens can use also their mobile phones to authenticate or e-sign. So one of our priorities is also the introduction of electronic identity card. Our national legislation, which is under preparation, will introduce personal electronic identity, and each user will be able to reveal it by various electronic identification means. We recognize the opportunity of the new requirements of the EU legislation regarding identity cards as travel document with biometric data issued by EU countries. And after several unsuccessful attempts during the last decades, we can expect that Slovenia will finally get its national electronic identity card The first will be issued in August next year. Nevertheless, we need to further explore the modern technologies and respond also to the so-called mobile government. I firmly believe that the mobile-based solutions for e-identification and also e-signature should be in our focus for the upcoming years. The new identity card will enable us to travel all over the EU, of course, after the crisis. But besides serving as an electronic identification mean to authenticate for the national use, it is planned to be notified according to eIDAS regulation and allow users from Slovenia to access also e-services in digital single market. Our e-identity card will be equipped also with the eID of low assurance level, which will serve for specific services. One of the most promising is its use for health insurance related services. It is expected that it will progressively replace health insurance cards and in this way contribute to more effective public administration. E-identity card will also serve as the mean for qualified e-signature. Service providers will rely on e-identity cards either directly or through CPaaS service I mentioned before, and users on the other side will be able to make use of contact or contactless access to the chip and use appropriate readers. We plan to use NFC technology to provide access by using dedicated mobile app. We are very well aware that the success and take-up of our eID are highly dependent on the frequency of use and user-friendliness of the solution. We are therefore pleased that the banking sector is showing great interest in using it. Well, I personally believe that the data are the asset of not just the future, but rather also of the present. A vast amount of data and the use of advanced technologies such as the Internet of Things, big data and artificial intelligence are offering brand new opportunities and challenges everywhere. We have already implemented some good practices using advanced data technologies. We have implemented data warehouse with the business intelligence in public administration. It's called Skrinja, the chest, and it's supporting decision-making and various communications with society, like negotiations with trade unions. The system enables a really efficient interactive access and visualization of data from the entire public sector for the salary system, for instance. The inclusion of public procurement data is also planned by the end of the year, and of course, other data sources will follow. In cooperation with the University of Ljubljana Faculty of Informatics and Computer Science, we are developing a semantic analyzer, a smart text search engine that works on the basis of artificial intelligence for advanced word processing in Slovene language. The tool enables easy and efficient algorithmic processing of a large amount of documents and text. In the economy, for example, digital twins are gaining ground as sensory data provides information on a wide variety of aspects of all physical objects, processes, systems, all from the real world. With digital twins, we can simulate and predict real world activities such as, environmental, energy efficiency, transport, logistics, public health, media space, financial chains, urban and other planning. In this way, digital twins of cities, provinces, countries, and even the entire Earth could be modeled. And therefore, Slovenia has decided to start the project of establishing the digital twin of Slovenia, which will present a sort of digital picture of the real events in the Republic of Slovenia. The basic purpose is to enable the government of Slovenia, with the help of advanced technologies, especially during a pandemic, to quickly and comprehensively monitor and explain current events, detect anomalies, predict trends, and report with visualization for real-time decision-making. Therefore, we decided to draft new legislation to establish an effective system for obtaining, collecting, analyzing, and visualization live, non-personal, and anonymized data, which measure various aspects of the operation of Slovenian society for making informed decisions. Allow me to conclude now, since I maybe already took a little too much of your time. The examples and figures have shown that with the right services and with the right approach towards the new users, by understanding their needs and pains, we can use our digital channels for the benefit of the whole ecosystem of the stakeholders. It is not, however, enough if we just optimize the processes at the service provider side, at the government side. The services with maximum impact are also bringing benefits to the users and other stakeholders, as our e-ball sick leave example is showing. By experimenting with the new technologies and by boldly looking into the future, by exchanging good practices and also cooperating internationally, we can stay relevant to our users, we can earn their trust and stay flexible and resilient. The latest pressing circumstances with the pandemics have shown the importance of being digital and flexible, and we can reasonably expect that the environment will keep changing and challenging us. At the end, I wish you all to stay healthy and optimistic. Together as a society, I believe we can and will prevail this situation, or if I may use the wisdom of the Balkans in its most essential form, što se mora nije teško, odnosno jeste teško, ali mora se. So what has to be done, it is not hard, it is hard, but still it has to be done. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much, Minister Korytnik, first of all, for taking time out of your absolutely busy schedule. Since I am responsible for our projects in Slovenia as well, I've been following the developments in this country as well very closely. And I think it's very impressive to see what kind of progress has been made as far as digitalization of public services has been made. You also outlined, and I think that is an important point, that yes, the crisis is problematic, but it also forced us as customers, but also as those who provide services, to speed up all the processes that we have just in order to reduce contacts and still to be able to function as a society. And I hope that you can take all those experiences in the new important role that Slovenia is going to play in the second half of 2021 when taking over the EU presidency, and hope you can boost the digitalization of the European as a whole lot more. I wish you and Slovenian people all the best. I hope that it will, for us, soon be possible to come back to Slovenia again. And I hope, and I'm pretty sure, that you will get through this crisis in a good manner. Thank you very much.
Zahvaljujemo se evo ministru Korytniku.
Thank Minister Korytnik. I always say that the Republic of Slovenia is the first in the region as regards implementation of processes coming closer to people. I'm sure that Minister Korytnik will be with us also next year to be our Slovenian guest, and that we will cooperate on the focus conferences in the future. Now let us remind ourselves of our partners.
Evo nas ponovo, imamo to kašnjenje od 15 minuta.
Here we are back again. We are running with like 15 minutes, but thank you so much for waiting for us. Our next panel has the title, The Media Perspective of Public Administration Communication Messages. It will be moderated, or our host is Mr. Dražen Dretar. He's the interim head of the Administrative Department for the Affairs of the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Varaždin. Dražen, the floor is yours. I hope that the technical issues we had at the beginning, that we have resolved it, and that all my participants have switched on their microphones. I hope that all these 230 participants at the end of the second day can participate properly. And I hope that you will find this interesting, what we intend to do. At this conference, which speaks of innovation and communication, is so important. Innovation is a topic which does not include only us who are communicating, but also the journalists. So we are focusing on our journalists, colleague journalists, and the media and the communication messages. We do not want to be part of the fairy tale where the mirror is supposed to tell us who's the most beautiful one. I hope that it is very important to get people around the same table, but of course not literally, but virtually. To put at the Zoom conference all the journalists to see how they understand that, because we all would like to communicate positively. But the question is, between the citizens and the others, where are the journalists? Now, in the times where most of them are digitalized, when Trump is just excluding journalists, the question is, what is the position, what is the role of the journalist, and who at the end is creating the public opinion? Those are the answers we will try to find too. I shall speak to my colleague, Aida Hadžimusić. She's a journalist of Al Jazeera Balkans. Jadranka Rabrinović from Montenegro is also with us. She's the journalist in the daily newspaper and portal Pobjeda. And I also hope that Robert Čoban is with us. He is the owner and president of the Color Press Group and director of Color Media Communications in Belgrade. Hello. And Mr. Boris Vlašić from Croatia, a very prominent column writer, column author in Jutarnji List. Very often he's causing different opinions between the citizens, between his readers, and also the public administration. He thinks that administration is always the opposition to the citizens. Well, sometimes I do agree, of course, we shall later about that. Aida Hadžimusić said that she can only spend some time with us, so please allow me to ask her to speak first to us. You worked also for a certain time for Deutsche Welle in Bonn. You're very familiar with the situation in the country, here and abroad. Please, could you tell us what is the difference in the approach of public administration and media? What is the difference between these countries and others in Bosnia and Slovenia? Hello, everybody. How much time do I have? Be as brief as you can. First of all, I would like to share my experience when talking about communication with public administration. It is a specific country. I believe more or less you all know how the structure here works. If you need an information which desires you to contact all level of administration, for example, the legal system, and when you try to find information, you write to different people and you can't get any answer, then you can't get an answer from one canton, you have to ask for information to all cantons. I recently wrote about children begging in the streets, and in general, this is criminal offense, misdemeanor. I couldn't get any information. It was a 10 times larger job for me than for any other journalist who has a centralized system. We have 136 ministries. And now, for example, there's a situation that, for example, a canton doesn't answer for 5 days and then just replies to you and said, okay, we have received your inquiry, we shall get back to you. Or they just call you and said, we can't write to you, do you have a pen, we'll tell you. Can you compare it to Bonn? Yes, of course. I worked for Bonn for a certain time, and from Bosnia and Herzegovina also communicated with Germany. And working on regional television, very often I'm communicating with foreign institutions. Croatia, for example, I also contacted with many other institutions. In Croatia, for example, in 2 or 3 hours, I got an answer from a municipality authority. But, for example, another topic, that was violence against migrants at the Croatian border, and they answered that they cannot make any comments on that. But when I quoted that, so when I said who it was, which police car, what time that happened, no, they just blocked me. No answer whatsoever. With Germany, I have very good experiences. I worked a lot with them regarding migration, very often. And very often those data are very difficult to extract. This is a two-way communication. Communication is so important, but many people are not aware of it. Sometimes I ask myself, is the citizens aware of that information has to be provided? But here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I have the impression that the citizens are not aware of the fact that a public administration is obliged to provide information. That's what they paid for. Yes, thank you for the opening. Thank you for introducing me. What AIDA is talking about? Is the public administration aware of that? They have to react fast, instantly. Did you have a problem like AIDA in Bosnia and Herzegovina? Did you experience that problem as well? Or maybe this is an opposition, maybe by default they're doing something what they're supposed to do. First of all, I think the situation everywhere is the same. There are no good times for the media. The more difficult it gets, the more interesting journalism becomes. The adrenaline is higher, and And the more sensitive a topic is, the more difficult it is to get an information. And I'm not surprised at all about the lack of information the Croatian police provides regarding what they are doing. As Aida said, she asked about that migration issue, violence against migrants, and she didn't get any answer. So the communication we have from the public administration and from all the structures of power, there is no common interest between them. When speaking about a new project, of course, all the information will be accessible, but what we are interested in are some things that are not offered, like, for example, how much money does our government spend? And of course, the construction of Zagreb, for example, that will be represented as something very nice. But at the moment, when you get to the crossroads and something is wrong, when there is a problem, how to get the information. For everybody who's not informed, there is another road, reconstructed road to the hill of Sljeme, with a cable car running above it, and there is a crossroad where the bus cannot turn. A bus gets up to the hill, but it cannot go back. But how much has been spent? Who worked on the road? You cannot get to these documents. We have to ask questions, we will not receive any answers, and so on. When Croatia as a state would have in the system digitalized information, if that would exist, then definitely things would be different. In another computer, there is the budget of the city of Omišalj, which said that they have spent 223 kuna this year. This is something less than 30 euro. They have spent for a coffee break for some choir singers who visited them. And this is in a very transparent budget. Why is this important to us? Because it is a part of the strategy which is being developed in Croatia, which recently was introduced when a big corruption came forward when this affair was revealed. In HEP, for example, the Croatian power company, well, they were found to pay bribe to a manager, and the lawyer said, well, this is not something we can believe in, because it might also have been differently. Maybe it wasn't right. But we all know that the final contracts never show the real price. You never know what they have negotiated on before. The Minister of Justice said that they will control that, and such a system will be introduced where all the cities will have to introduce their very transparent budget or the transparent spending. We shall see if the Parliament will be in favor of that and how this transparency matter in other countries is. But there is a problem at the very beginning, because it was suggested in a way to be controlled how the state budget is controlled. But that's something we cannot see. You can just see the cost at the end, but not how they were spent and for what it was spent. Yeah, Dranka, let's be brief and more interesting with the answers.
We are hearing from Boris from Jutarnji List. What is the situation in Montenegro regarding transparency of public administration? Are they prepared to accept these high standards of transparency? We have one interesting practice. If you know strictly what you are looking for, then you invoke the law on free access to information, and you can even get the bills how much some government officials have paid in the restaurant and so on. But you must know exactly what you are looking for. Otherwise, the state budget is a matter in principle where it gives only sums, total sums of money. Of course, there is a revision of the budget every year, which sometimes give us additional information. But the Montenegro administration, of all other administrations, they prefer to talk only about what is positive about them. If there is a journalist who is very critical of them, for instance, I had that case regarding the tax authorities, after what the tax authorities cut off communication towards us. In other words, we only had to rely on their press releases. Oftentimes, this is even personalized, that a certain official was offended by something that the media have written about him. So, there are various combinations. I hope that Robert has fixed his camera. Do you hear us? I think that you are the right persons, as you are the owner of a news organization. What is your view of the public administration's coverage of the news, and how do you make news into goods that can be marketed projects? When we speak about the better future and so on the other hand, we hear Boris and Jadranka that journalists are looking for spicy topics, and where is the final solution? I will stick to the situation in Serbia only. As in the past few months, I think you know, we had a situation where for almost 4 months we have been waiting for the formation of the government of Serbia, and we got the government finally in the middle of October, and in this technical mandate of 4 months, in addition to the epidemic, which has delayed everything, it provided an excuse for everybody for not doing things, for many things that were not done on time or not done in a proper manner. Apart from Corona, we had this fact that the ministers in the technical mandate communicated in a much worse manner with the media. Because when you know that you have 4 years in power ahead of you, you communicate in one manner. But when you don't know where you will be in 15 days' time, it has made things more difficult. Now finally the government is formed. Some ministers have shifted their positions, and they took their whole PR teams with them into the new ministers, and the new ministers that came inherited empty desks. So after 4 months of waiting for the government, we have an additional month of waiting for the ministries to be equipped with the people, with the necessary people. How does it affect the information which actually come from the public administration of Serbia? Everything is slowed down. And when speaking about Serbia, and I believe we are all similar in that respect, in all 6 states, it all boils down to the individual. If at the head of a ministry or a public institution or agency we have a person who has sensibility towards the media, who has a normal communication, then it goes in a much more easily. Speaking about the pandemic again, we made an analysis of social networks of all the ministries, and we were surprised to find that 90% of ministries have only Facebook, kept very badly, or they have nothing. They have no Twitter account, they have no LinkedIn, they have no Instagram. In the times of Corona, when you cannot travel, when communication is difficult, when you cannot meet with people, the cheapest and most efficient way of communicating are social networks. Let me interrupt you. Is this so bad? Because if we start communicating with through the social networks, where is the position of the media? If everybody has a mobile phone and can access Instagram, Twitter, and so on, this does not destroy the position of the media. Not to speak about the fact that Trump has brought Twitter back on a grand scale, but for us who follow the Twitter, we want to deepen this news. We want to hear the other side. We want to know why this is so. It is a great illusion that the social networks and the newspaper and journalists are enemies. We are not enemies, we are allies. They shouldn't put us in the position to copy-paste other people's press releases. I wish to echo your words. Our goal is to communicate in the right way to the citizens. Aida, what is your view of modern means? Are they a threat to the establishment, or do you see them as Robert, that they are actually supplementary, that they serve to get the real information to the citizens? What is your view of somebody who is still in the traditional media? I've been listening to Robert very carefully, and I can subscribe to everything that he said. It is for us to find this other side. Communication via social media can be very good for the citizens. We had an example in one of the cantons where we had a third exchange of government since 2018. I don't know if you know that the opposition parties have made a coalition in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then they made very good progress in that sense. They have placed everything on the Instagram, and why not make the things easier for the media? Let me give a very bizarre example. Speaking about communication with public administration, I was looking for a minister in that particular canton in order to get a call back by somebody who said he was an advisor. It was a man who is known as a long-time advisor to the Prime Minister on the federal level. And after he promised to give me his statement, I began to receive denials from the canton saying that this man is not employed at all in the canton. So I began to wonder what kind of communication this is. A man has seen my email. I wonder how he gets the access. And finally, he told me that he was helping the minister in the capacity of personal friend of the minister. Speaking about the position of journalists in the digital media, colleague Glavac from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that their focus on the younger population. Do you agree that the younger population follows the digital media in much more greater numbers than the older age groups? In principle, yes. The younger age groups is much more educated in terms of information media. They use the internet and so on. But the catch is that the news portals, every newspaper has its own news portal. We in the printed media write the stories which go to the portals. The portals do a copy-paste. They want to be quick. They really copy-paste the news or press releases. They don't have the time to deepen the stories. So it is up to us to deepen the stories, and they only copy-paste what we have done. And I think that the future of journalists is that you have, firstly, the people try to start to believe everything that has been published, and then it is up to us to give a deeper comment. Where do you find your key mines for your information? Yes, of course. They are the teasers. The politics is leaning on the Twitter and other digital media. I think that actually there is perfect complementarity between between the traditional and the digital media. So tell us, what is the actual standard of communication in Croatia? Many information that we get are only formal, but the journalists deepen all these stories with their questions. Let us remember that the representatives of government are following the social media. Remember the replicas and discussion between the Prime Minister and the journalists of N1 network. Kreščić, when he commented Prime Minister's tweet, our Prime Minister and our President have communicated via social networks in the last months. So this has given the social networks strength equal to that of the traditional media. What do you think about the leaks of information? There are no leaks. Everything is leaked deliberately. So it is always intentional. I have a million examples of that. Always there is the intention and somebody is leaking the information on purpose. We had an example of a prime minister who is now in jail, Ivo Sanader. 3 days before he resigned office, he informed his closest advisors, and this was about 15 of his advisors. But nothing of that was leaked to the media, simply because they did not want to leak it to the media. I want to confirm that nothing is leaked what they do not want to leak. And they even choose the media to whom they leak this information. They always calculate where their interests will be the greatest. And they always refer to the so-called unofficial sources. And when you ask who has given this information, excuse me, I have to turn out. May I ask somebody to switch off the mobile phone? I'm sorry, I was deconcentrated a bit. If you use the so-called unofficial sources,
that means that someone else is placing or providing the information you cannot check, but all you can do is do him a favor. But it is up to us to check this information, because it is up to that is what our credibility depends on, doesn't it? Of course they are using they're using us. You're referring here to all the levels of administration, from political parties to the government. Do you think it is only the role of a journalist to publish news in a way to be always the opposition of the party in power? Have you thought about that, how to introduce positive news, for example, factories being built or something else positive? Because very often journalists are just pulling lines out of the context. So it is very difficult to build up a positive reputation of a politician. I don't think that is paradox. If it is about good things, the public will notice it. The media will not miss it. That the media is investigating and publishing things that are not very nice for people, that is normal, because we are there to correct things, to publish things which are not right. Well, everything is in PR. The gentleman just asked how to publish or present good news. We are not writing only bad about corona, because this is about panics and misuse of information or misplaced information. Many people, also journalists, are not, or PR people are not ready to communicate properly. Robert, are you here? You are told, you are called the king of the tabloids in Serbia. Very often we're talking about estradization, and people from the top of public administration, ministers, presidents, county prefects and mayors, they're very often being treated as celebrities. Do you think that such an approach of the media is okay? I think that by that the yellow press, is it desirable? And what do you think about packing real politics in smaller formats? For example, I'd say how the politicians are drinking wine, or where are they going to spend their holidays? Don't you think that this influences their reputation? When talking about tabloids, after Dayton and after we found some peace in this region, the concept of our journal, Svet, the world, we turned to fun, to entertainment. But the journal back then, as well as our tabloids, has changed. Today that is 120 journals or magazines, but only 3 are tabloids. And they are dealing with singers, with athletes, with actors. We never dealt with politics. It started in 2001. Nacional is called that journal, or the Daily Telegraph as well. They approached that in a different way. Today, almost all daily newspapers are tabloids. And what I have to say, it is not fair to always to blame the journalists, because all the public, all the VIPs and all the people living and working in public are public personalities. Doesn't matter if it is a singer, like for example Zdravko Čolić is a singer because he never had scandals, so we never wrote badly about him, or politicians who have such behavior in public, so it is obvious that they become a topic for the tabloids. because a politician or a public person himself defines a way how he will be treated in the newspapers. If you lead a life which is not interesting to the tabloids, definitely they will not try to shoot photographs of you, or very seldom they will do it or write about you only because you said how you drink your glass of wine. But if you do some other things, and we have seen that the Croatian politicians are also do their things differently. We have seen these parties during the lockdown, and the citizens were in lockdowns, but the politicians were celebrating and partying. Well, this is not sensational journalism or yellow journalism. No, it is a way to show what politicians do and what people paid by their citizens do, or how they spend their money. I think that this is justified, and that is what is being done in the US, in Great Britain, everywhere, and that is something what we need to correct the behavior of our public servants. Definitely it is not at the top level. That is why we need the media. Many of the media, unfortunately, depends on politics or the public, so they sometimes don't do the job properly. But if there wouldn't be the media, our people wouldn't have the proper information what politicians do. Daniel, I don't need how much time's left. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes, then we can take questions. Maybe there will be time for questions. In Croatia, for example, the engagement of PR agencies, just briefly, Jadranka, Boris, Aida, Robert, do you support and do you agree with the concept that public administration actually is using private PR agencies in order to communicate better with the citizens? What do you think? I have no problem with that. I think it would be even better, because every ministry here, for example, or here has its PR, and most often this is a person which is politically which has the same political opinion, or just is a friend of somebody, or that is a person who is politically correct, and those persons are then employed there usually. But what do you think, Aida? And I just will answer to that, and then I have to go. So if there is already somebody employed, you don't need to engage any agency to spend public money, because I have to end and I have to go. I was glad to be with you. Thank you, Aida, for your comment. I hope that we will have the chance to see each other live. Boris, yes, put people on the right place. That is what business says. Let's use professionals, which means that even though Aida is thinking very logically, if there is a PR person already employed, then that is what this person is supposed to do. But very often that job is really big, and if there are some persons, or there's possibility to outsource that, why not? What Robert said. Regarding to tabloids, even though I'm not working for tabloids, I would like to say that in Great Britain there is a standard related to politics, and that is the Daily Beast standard. If you're a serious politician, they're not allowed to write about you. So we are writing about politicians, which means that this standard is not achieved. They are found in newspapers where scandals are published or where newspapers write about scandals. So they're not serious politicians then. As the colleague said before, I have nothing against it to work if PR is being outsourced, because the people working or doing PR in public administration, very often they got the job because they think in a politically correct way, or they are friends to somebody in politics. But very rarely this is a professional who does his job properly. So why not hiring a professional? Very often people are working working for them with the task to lobby for them. We never know how these people are being paid. There is no transparency. So I have nothing against it to have an outsourced PR, and people should do it who do it professionally. We are coming to the end. Maybe we should have started with that question. But thanks to the conference, like the Focus conference and Focuses, has in a way broke the ice in educating or how to educate public administration, how messages should be communicated with the public. Now the question, what should public administration or communication in public administration do to improve communication with the citizens? We all know that this is necessary. So besides transparency, accepting and applying new technology, what else could they do? What is your advice to us communication experts? What to do in order to communicate better with journalists and with the citizens? Jadranka. We have a strategy that within 24 hours, people in the public offices are supposed to provide an answer within 24 hours. No chance, they're not doing that. They're not interested in providing an answer in writing to us. And what will happen if they don't answer within 24 hours? There are no sanctions. There is no punishment. They're just obliged to do that, and that's it. It was said in the strategy because it was important to write the strategy, and it's nice to put in the strategy that they have to answer to us within 24 hours. You cannot say that a journalist has done this or that, like Trump is doing it. You're not supposed to do that. So regardless what I have wrote to you today, you have to answer my question tomorrow. That was a good Schlagwort for your answer to the topic. What to do for better communication? Communicate. Simply communicate. Be proactive. Be there at all the social networks. That is how to support creative thinking. And how to make something useful. That is the idea of the public administration, to do something for the citizens. Robert, how would you enhance communication? We can't hear you. You're muted? No, I'm not muted. Do you hear me? Yes, we do. In some cities in the region, some serious political changes happened. Exactly, Montenegro, Sarajevo, Banja Luka, where the candidates have won who communicated much better through the social networks. I was in Sarajevo, where recently local elections took place, and I saw the posters of the party in power. and nothing ever was so different and so in contrast to the reality around. There were everywhere those who have communicated differently, more openly and more honestly, but they had problems, and I think this should be a message to everybody in the region to think how the citizens will react if they continue to refuse to communicate. You need a person who reads the comments of the citizens, who will react to what the citizens say, and this. Therefore, you do not need a lot of money. You just need to be human. You need to show respect to your citizens, and that is something we have seen in the last elections. Like, for example, in Banja Luka, Mr. Dodik, he is also a member of the Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina. He spent more times in opening roads and traffics than he spent in Banja Luka, and it happened that the opposition candidate has won. This is bad communication. For example, when people do something good, when they communicate it bad, the result will never be good.
You're more of a businessman than a communicator. Speaking about budgets, in the media that you cover, how much do the public administration participate in your budget? Is it a major part of your income? Very concretely, speaking about magazines, this is a negligible sum because our magazines are concerned with lifestyle, entertainment. But speaking about the other part of the company, speaking about the organizing of events, conferencing, festivals, then the income is significant from the public administration, especially when commercial sponsors have withdrawn in the last year. So in Serbia, these are various ministries. They remained as our sponsors, but we never permitted ourselves to be complacent. And speaking specifically about online conferences, we have organized them professionally. We took care that the content is good, and the fact that it is easy to get public money, we nevertheless took pains to justify all that we do and to justify our content. What do you think of the idea to buy media space with public money? So would you ever engage in an advertisements ordered by a public? No, I would never write such a thing. What do you think about the whole package? I remember the beginnings of Jutarnji List, where we had some attempts of influencing us. I speak about a certain blackmail, and then the editor-in-chief said, I must sell the paper tomorrow. So this is quite an essential criterion in the assessment whether to give in to somebody who is paying an advertisement. Should you stop the paper? Should you stop a certain text? I think that it is crucial to publish the text, and in the end this is what you get. But those who get punished in the text, if they withdraw to the level of advertising, they will not do themselves a favor, because the journal, the public will go on reading what they like. In Montenegro, there is the public administration are buying media space. Speak about ads on public procurements. Speaking about direct payments for a text where somebody will not, it's not done by the public administration, but for instance the tax administration will pay, they will pay us to print an extra newsletter, but it is written that it is specifically paid by the tax administration. So I have no problem of writing a text for them, but we make it clear that they are paying for this, and it is clear that this is marketing. Because on the contrary, it would be disguised advertising, and I think that we all agree that our aim is not to support disguised advertising. I have no problem to write professionally a text if the tax authority, customs authority want to inform people about something, if they want to give some data, we do a professional marketing service for them, and this is a kind for our paper to get some income. All the participants who are following us, I think that our time is up. Can you give us a sentence or two for the end? Robert, if you are still with us, you yourself are organizing of such conferences. How do you see this kind of meeting between us from the media and the public administration? I think you agree that this is a way for us to function better all together. Unmute, please. For us, when we had the economic crisis in 2008, our president Boris Tadic became famous for saying that the crisis is a big chance. As it turned out, it was not a big chance. For us, this epidemic was a chance to shift all our activities from offline into the digital, to make stream conferencing, to enter into partnership, to enter, to contact various levels of public administration, various ministries. And I think if the media are adaptable, we know that many industries are in big problems. We see information such as help the trade fairs, help the culture. I think we should not be seeking so much help from the state, although the state has sometimes helped us. But I think that the media should cooperate with the clients and the public sector. They should organize themselves and adapt to the situation, because the situation in the past 9-10 months has changed all. And at this moment, normally I would be in a conference hall or in a hotel. But now what I'm going to do, I will sit in my car and I still talk to you and I still participate in your conference. I think that people in the public administration should be educated. They should be told that they must have access to all social media. So this is the situation in Serbia. If we are all proactive and we change with the environment, with the circumstances, only in such a case we will be able to have a result in the media and in the economy. Thank you, Robert. Take care how you walk, take care how you drive. Thank you, bye-bye. Boris, can we have your final word? do you think that this kind of panel conferences make sense? Already during the presentation of the Slovenian minister, I asked him to send me his presentation because I think it is valuable to share our experiences. I think that Croatia does not have this kind of program that Slovenia has created. Thank you, Boris. We know that Aida has said goodbye to us. Jadranka, thank you for your cooperation. I wish you a lot of success, and I believe that you agree that the journalists and media are here to talk to each other. The more we talk, the more we will agree. Thank you everybody who was listening to us. Daniel, I give the word to you. It was a pleasure for me to be a host to guests from Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm speaking from Croatia, from a small city of Varaždin, who unfortunately has very bad numbers in COVID, and my final message is be responsible and stay negative. Thank you, Dražen. Thank you, the panelists. I thank all the participants who decided to follow us through our YouTube or Zoom channels. I apologize to the presenters for minor technical hitches. Tomorrow we start again at 9:30. Stay healthy.
Bilo je odlično, apropo hvala svima još jednom.